If you or someone you know is struggling with alcoholism or addiction, do not hesitate to reach out for help. You can find numerous free resources on our website, thebeginagainpodcast.com, and there are tons of resources and support networks available online, in person, or just a phone call away. You don't have to face this challenge alone. Welcome to the Begin Again podcast. I'm your host, Gary Menkes. On the Begin Again podcast, we delve into the inspiring journeys of individuals who have overcome alcoholism and addiction and emerged as true trailblazers in entrepreneurship, business, sports, and beyond. Through authentic, uplifting, and profound conversations with our guests, we aim to shatter the stigma surrounding addiction and demonstrate that recovery can be a catalyst for remarkable success, strength, and resilience. We firmly believe that by listening to these accounts, you will be empowered to unlock your own potential, instigate positive change in your life, and contribute to the creation of a better world. So, get ready to be inspired and embark on your own personal journey of growth with the Begin Again podcast. Welcome back to the Begin Again podcast. Gary Menkes here, and joining us today is the author of the just-released memoir, Pretty Wrecked, a tale of grit, brutal honesty, and plenty of humor. And she's been sober for over 28 years, and she's here to tell her story and to inspire you that you're not alone. Tracy Viola, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Gary. I'm so happy to be here.
No, I'm happy you're here too. And I saw your memoir. We just talked offline. We're out of line on a lot of things. Brought us here is our sobriety. And you wrote this amazing book, and you've been in long-term sobriety for 28 years. That's amazing. I'm going on 18. May 13th will be my 18th year, God willing. But 28 years.
That's amazing. That's great. No, 18 is great. I mean, it's like one day is great. It really is. It's funny. I had somebody message me for some reason on Instagram recently, and they were like, "Oh, after 28 years, you're recovered." And I was like, "Clearly, that person's not in recovery, so I'm gonna let it go. We're just gonna not reply there."
Yeah.
But and it's just funny because you still do the work, right? I mean, for me, I'll speak for myself. Like I'm still aware of all those sayings and steps and keeping my side of the street clean. And, so no, I'm happily still involved in my recovery.
No, me
proudly
too.
And happily.
Same here. And, if you've listened, I got sober in AA, and it saved my life, and all the sayings. I remember early on, like none of them made sense. None of these sayings on the wall. Easy does it. And, KISS, keep it simple, stupid. Now, my go-to to pretty much everything. Like when I get all wound up, it's like, settle down, keep it simple, stupid. It's all, it's all simple, but they all started to make sense after.
Totally.
It was slow and steady, but it started making sense.
I love that you said that. I actually talk about that in the book, of sitting there and like sitting in that meeting, my first meeting, and like looking at all those, and they're kind of like intricately, like, they've got like the red for the first letter, and I was young. But I remember looking at all of them and being like, these are stupid.
Yeah.
And now I feel like they're the foundation of my life.
Me too. It's funny. You just reminded me of something that turned, I remember when I was early on, like, hearing a guy, I'm a grateful alcoholic. And I was like, all right, time out. I'm calling BS. Like, all right, we're here, right? We have problems. We're sick people, but don't tell me you're happy about this and like you're grateful for it. Right. And 18 years later, I know exactly what that guy meant.
Yeah.
Is I am a grateful alcoholic, because if it wasn't for my path and me finding IA and finding sobriety, like all these other amazing things that I try to work on or try to grow myself every single day would not be part of my life.
Totally. I don't know because, now I'm thinking, like, I almost like want to go like interview a couple. I call them normals. It's probably not the right word, but like people that, I don't know, don't have any issues with substances or alcohol, or don't abuse it or whatever. But I agree with you. I feel like, I wouldn't wish like the shit that I went through on somebody. And at the same time, I also know that there's no way I'd be the person I am today without having had to kind of recover from that and grow from it. So I am grateful for it. And yeah, I don't know who I'd be without having done all the work.
Yeah.
You know?
You bring up two great points to me. One is when early on, my girlfriend, who is my wife now, I was showing her the 12 steps, and I was struggling. And she's reading the 12 steps. She's like you said, she's one of the normies,
Mhm.
like a glass of wine and stare at it. And this sick guy still doesn't get it. But hey, to each their
Yeah.
own.
Why are you bothering?
Yeah,
Why?
I don't
Yeah.
get it. I don't get it. But she read the 12 steps and she's like, wow, everyone can probably use some level of these 12 steps. I think, you don't have to be an alcoholic. I was like, yeah, maybe you're right, And
Yeah,
the other
I
part,
agree.
the other part, which you're bringing up is a friend, Flint Anderson, who's out west. You probably see him on Instagram. He's one of the main voices against fentanyl crisis. He's an incredible,
Mhm.
and I was having a couple of conversations with him and he's just like, the people in recovery are the most incredible human beings I've ever met in my life. And I was like, okay, I'm like, elaborate. He's like, well, what do you mean elaborate? He's like, we've all been, we're all phoenixes. We've all been through hell and back, and we're here and we're talking about it and we're trying to pay it forward and help some other people. And I'm like, it empowered me. I'm like, you know what? He's right. And I'm sitting here talking with you and hearing how you talk. I'm like, yeah, just exactly. You meet these incredible
Yep.
people in recovery. So yeah, what are we? Two
No, I mean,
here.
they're I call them, I mean, it's probably not the greatest theme from, but I call them my bury a body friends.
Yeah,
Like, and I talk about him in the book, my friend Dave, who I met in the program early on, is my daughter's godfather. I mean, it's just one of my people that I don't, like, if he called me and was like, come here, I'd be like, done.
right.
Like, I've got your back. And it's amazing to know people, because I think I don't know, I'll speak for myself. I think he and I have each seen each other at our lowest,
Sure.
at our most raw,
Right.
and have shared such depth that I just don't know if you can have that kind. I don't know. I don't think I have that kind of relationship with a lot of people that I didn't get sober with. And like my friend Brian, same thing. And my friend Patty Ann, same thing. Like, it's just these people that you started at like the bottom
Sure.
and you grew with.
I couldn't agree more. And I would even for myself, speaking for myself, add the people that maybe not necessarily I did know when I first came in, but are my crew now, like my sponsor now. We have a group of guys like, we've been talking for the last, I don't know, 10 years, some guys 5 years, but every day or every week I'm gonna chat with them. Like we're talking about real life stuff. Like granted, we're talking about sports too, but and laughs and jokes, but we're talking about fatherhood. We're talking, hey man, I messed up. I was really short my son today and I can't shake it. And we talk about real life stuff about being a human being, about being a better human. And my sponsor started just a small group when the pandemic started. I'm just his sponsees. There's like 8 or 9 of us. He's like,
Yeah.
listen, we got to do something. Like, let's jump on this Zoom. I guess people using the Zoom. Like, let's read the book. Like, cool. And now 4.5 years later, whatever the time frame is, like Monday night at 6 o'clock is like everyone's
That's
life.
your time.
We
Yeah.
are
That's
all
awesome.
and it's been an incredible, lack of a better word, turn of events. Like it's so important to all of us. And
Yep.
in that time frame, like I said, like the relationships and I still have my old boys too. Like I've been in the foxholes with all those guys too, and I love them. They're my boys, but there's a little bit different of, real life stuff, like stuff that's going on in my real life. They know before anybody does.
Yeah, it is. And it is, using what you said earlier about being grateful.
Mm,
Um, I have definitely found sobriety and all the lessons that I've learned to be a gift. And it's now not only a gift for myself, but it's a gift that I get to share in my marriage. We're coming up on it's bad that I have to look at the date. I'm like, what is it? We're coming up on 19 years married. We've
right.
got 2 girls, and to be able to be an example for them of, hey, this is how you deal with stuff. This is how you make amends. This is how you say, wow, I was really quick with you. I love your example. I didn't handle that well today, and I'm really sorry. And I've got a lot going on. And, you know, um, I'm really scared. Like, saying these things, not being afraid to be wrong. Right. It's been for me such a gift to be able to be like, wow, I get to share all of these lessons with
Yeah.
my kids, and I hope that they're absorbing some of them.
Sure. You bring up, and you actually helped me with that too, because it is a gift, right? Because I don't know about you, but I would guess like those weren't conversations. Those weren't normal conversations. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, it's okay to be, scared. Hey, talk to me, right? Like, we need to talk this out. And
Hmm.
it's a gift. Like my son, he's 9 now. My wife kind of makes a big deal about my anniversary. We got a carvel cake, whatever in the car. And this last year, he came in and he's like, Dad, you don't drink? I was like, no, buddy, I don't drink. He was 8 years old at the time. And he's like, I'm not going to drink either. And I was just like, buddy, like if you stick to that, you're going to be so ahead of the game. But just have these conversations, and I say this not to repeat myself on my show, but we went on this I like to hike. I dragged everyone on an upstate hiking trip last summer. The only person apparently that likes hiking is me. And so it was a bit of a disaster driving all around upstate New York. But on the way home from this trip, we spent like 2 hours talking about alcoholism, about drugs with my 10 and 9-year-old.
Hmm.
To that conversation, I just turned to my wife. I was like, I'll do this every single weekend if this conversation is going to come up, right? And she's like, yeah, no, right on. Like,
Yeah.
it was
Because
worth
it is scary. And I don't know about you, but with my background, my father was an active alcoholic. He was married before my mom and had 4 children. And his first wife unfortunately died, but 3 of those kids had problems with drugs and alcohol. And then I did.
yeah,
And I think it was his mom that may have had a problem as well. But the point is that I'm definitely aware of this genetic potential,
sure, sure,
and so I am very open with my kids about it, about that's a concern for me.
yeah,
And I also let them know, hey, here's my experience, here's my concerns, and you're also gonna have to make your own decisions.
sure, yeah.
You're gonna, and I find that's like a little bit of like a reverse psychology, by being like, no, you go do you, but that's just my opinion. And they just kind of shut up. And then of course they're like, well, I don't want to upset her. So,
Right, right. I
you
love it.
know, but and it's great to be able to talk openly with that. And it's funny you brought up something that happened probably about a year ago at our bus stop. And I have great neighbors. I just want to go on record and say I love my neighbors. I love my neighborhood. One of my neighbors happened to mention doing a company outing, and it was like during a lunchtime thing. And she happened to say, it's a lunchtime thing and it's for my company, so we're going to be the only losers there not drinking. And she said this in front of all the kids at the bus stop.
Oh,
And I couldn't let that one go.
yeah.
And so I said, well, I don't drink ever. Does that make me a loser? And she's like, well, no, you know what I meant. And I said, maybe, but you know who doesn't know what you meant?
Mm,
All of these children.
whoa.
All these children. So I said, I just want to go on record saying, I don't drink ever. I don't feel like a loser. I'm not a loser, and that it's perfectly fine. And so I had to say that. And you could tell she was like horrified.
Yeah,
But I was like, I have to be a voice for these kids that are taking cues, from they're listening.
sure.
And so it was, very awkward.
Yeah,
But I was like, I can't sit by and not say something. So
love that.
I'm hoping that we can start to offer that as an
Sure.
option to our kids.
No, and I think it's more out there. Certainly more out there than 28 years ago. Definitely more out there than 18 years ago. It's improving, right? It still needs a lot of work for sure, but no, it's improving now. Like this, when I first got here, when I say here, like on social media, this like sober curious. I'm like, what's sober curious? And my initial reaction was like, okay, that's like over there, like you haven't been through what I've been through. And to be completely honest, after a year, I'm like, they might be the most important people in the room because
I
you know what?
am a
I've been
fan.
through it. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, I've been through it, right? Like maybe they don't have to
Maybe they don't have to go through that
right.
shit.
Like they might be the most important people in the room. Like, let's go. I want to talk to you people.
I agree. I am a fan. And actually, the funny thing is, we've had 2 of our friends that have read my book come forward. One is a man, one is a woman. And they both have said, and they don't have problems. They don't have a problem with alcohol or drugs. But both of them have said, I think I would like to not drink for a while and
Yeah.
just to see. And they don't drink a lot, but they're just like, I think I'd like to just not drink at all for a while. And I was like, that's so cool.
No,
Yes.
and they find out they're like, I haven't, again, they don't have the track record or the law record that I have necessarily, but like, Gary, I haven't drank in like 2 months and I've never felt better. I dropped
Mhm.
10 pounds. I'm actually exercising. I just feel better. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Keep going. Like, keep the experiment up. Keep going.
Yeah. I mean, I have, so I'm 48. I just had my birthday. So I'm 48 years old. And I have a lot of women that say to me, like, your skin looks great and you're fit. And I say, well, I don't drink my calories,
Yeah.
first of all.
Right.
Like, I don't drink something that's drying me out
Yeah.
and it's going to make me depressed and make me like not get up and work out in the morning.
Yeah.
So let's just start there, and let me tell you how many people actually take me up on that.
Right. But if one
Like,
does,
well, that's what it works. I don't know what to tell you. Like,
yeah. Well, happy birthday to you. I'm turning 50,
thanks.
turn 50 in a couple months, July 2nd.
Oh, I hope you're doing something fun.
I'm not sure yet. We got a
It's
lot
a
going
big
on.
one. You gotta do
Yeah,
something.
we'll end up doing something. We'll do something. But you mentioned your dad and your half siblings, if you will. And I don't want to say I struggle with it, but I come from generations of alcohol, heavy drinkers, alcoholics, if you will. Not everyone has gotten sober. In fact, I'm one of the first ones to get sober. I always said, all right, fine, maybe there's some DNA, maybe there's some genetics in this body, fine. But like when you match, like I also did a lot of this stuff like on my own, like especially all the trouble I gotten into. Like
Hmm.
maybe I'm a heavy drinker, but or maybe my uncles or aunts or my grandparents, but I don't see their I'm getting arrested as many times as I did. So I kind of had this, I think it's for me. This is just for me. Like it's both. Like yes, all right. In fact, they were like looking at me when I was like my mom's 1 of 10. I have 7 uncles. They're the best guys in the whole planet, and 2 aunts, and in fact, we're so close. My mom's youngest brother is only 10 years older than me. He's my best man in the wedding, but they were looking at me like 11, 12 years old. They're like, we got to keep an eye on this guy. Like he's, there's a few of us that are a little wild. Like you got it, man. I was like, yeah, I know, I got it. Cool. Well, we're kids. We didn't know anything, but I'm also the
Hmm.
first person that I am aware of that went away in rehab. First person that, I'm certainly the first person sitting on a soapbox saying, hey, you can change your life here, and this is how
Hmm.
it's kind of started. But tell us tell us about your childhood. How was that? And what led you, Tracy, on your path to alcoholism
Sure.
and your struggle?
Sure. So, as I mentioned, my father was an active alcoholic and he died an alcoholic. But my parents got divorced when I was 6,
Mm.
and he wasn't really involved in my life much after that. I mean, I don't want to blame the alcohol, but I'm sure that had a big part of
Right,
it.
right.
And from the outside perspective, right, I lived on Philadelphia's main line, which is like a fancy way of saying I lived in like an affluent area.
Mhm.
I had a mom that loved me very much. I went to a good private school, the whole thing, right? I had a nice house and things were fine
Mhm.
until, unfortunately, my mom married my stepfather. He came into my life when I was 12 years old, and he really was essentially a con artist. And he appeared one way on the outside for that period of time. And then very quickly after my mom married him, things started to go downhill. And it started as like little quips and comments and things here and there. And he was with us for 4 years, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And he was extremely abusive, mostly mentally, emotionally, occasionally physically, but also just very threatening physically. Like
Yeah.
he wouldn't even hit you. He'd kind of grab you by the arm and pull you in and talk in a really low, threatening. So it's just as a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid, you don't have any coping skills. You don't know what's right or wrong. This is an adult in your life.
Yeah.
And it was very, very scary.
Scaring the shit out of you, it sounds like.
It was very scary. And of course, it's like the second most growth developmental time of your life, right? I think the first is like
Well,
1 to 4 years old. And then the second one is like something like 11 to 14. And so like during one of these huge transitions of my life, I had this person telling me, you're no good. You don't know anything. You're stupid. You're fat. You need to lose weight. Just, listen to what I say. You can't do anything. Don't try to make any decisions. Like just, it was awful. And he was also awful to my mom. So I also have to be respectful of the fact that my mother was also going through her stuff, because I think sometimes people are like, well, where was your mom in this? Well, she was dealing with, my dad that wasn't really around. And now my stepfather, who was also being probably very abusive to her. And my stepfather did a very good job of keeping us separate, right? Like he would never really do this much in front of her, and he wouldn't yell at her in front of me. So it was very sneaky. Anyway, my mom made the decision to leave the house. And at this point, say 14, 15, going into 16, maybe I've like tried some sips of alcohol from like the liquor cabinet. You know, I think I'd started smoking cigarettes, but mostly just to be like a rebel, not because I liked it.
Yeah.
I really hadn't gotten into much, but I knew in the few times that I had drank that I liked it. I also knew that I needed to present a certain appearance. And maybe that's my training in where I live. Like I literally went to like finishing school kind of bullshit.
Sure.
So, which again ends up working against me because then I knew how to play the game, right? I knew how to look the look and play the part and get away with it.
Right.
Because so much of it was, you know, as looks are deceiving. You know, don't I say this to my girls all the time, you know, don't compare your insides to somebody else's outsides.
I love that. Yes, that I hear that.
So important, especially where we live, where there's a lot of big outsides. There's a lot of nice houses and nice cars. And I say to them, do they have two parents that like genuinely love them and are involved and like get along, right? Like two parents that like love each other. I don't know. I mean, they have a nice house. That's good.
I'm still with
anyway, so don't compare. So that was very much, I used that to my advantage. I used people thinking my outsides were my insides to my advantage as I progressed through my addiction.
Sure.
But going back to when I really got started was when my mom decided to leave my stepfather, thankfully.
Right.
She did it in a very sudden way where I literally went off to school. And I talk about this moment in the book. I went off to school and I came home and the whole house was gone. I mean, I'm talking like, I like opened the door and like, it's like, where's the dining room?
Wow.
Where's the dining room?
Yeah.
And so everything was gone. She came downstairs and she said, we're leaving him. We're going to go live with your grandparents for a couple of weeks until, you know, I can make some decisions. And, you know, we're leaving right now. So like, go up to your room, go make sure I got anything that you really want. And let's go. And I call that moment for me, I use the word in the book, mutation, because what I really felt like happened was, and I remember yelling at my mom. It was like maybe 2 or 3 days after we moved in with my grandparents. And I remember yelling at her and saying, I will never let anybody control me, make my choices, do this to me. I will never be in this position. And I feel like it was almost like an X-Men situation.
Yeah. Like
I mutated and something happened and I kind of shut down. I remember like the moment, and I was 16 years old. And at this point I was hanging out with people that were drinking and smoking pot, and I was around more drugs. And I hadn't really, I drank, you know, and I liked it, but I knew I also like had to go home. So I had to like put on the face. And I hadn't really done any drugs yet. And there's a quote that I say, and I've spoken at a lot of schools and I've spoken at a lot of recovery centers, and you know, there's something similar to it in AA, but essentially what I say is, you know, if you hang out with a bunch of swimmers, eventually you're going to jump in the fucking pool.
Yep. No, I love it. I love that.
Jump in the pool.
And
I was hanging out with these people.
You're going to go to the barbershop, you're going to get a haircut eventually.
You get a haircut. Exactly. And I was hanging out with these people. And I remember we left my house. I was living with my grandparents. I love my grandparents. Listen, Mom and Pop-Up were lovely people. Living with Mom and Pop-Up at 16 was not a lovely experience. Right.
Sure.
So separate the two ideas. It was not a lovely, my grandmother's room, when I say literally, I slept in the twin bed in my grandmother's room, and it had not been redecorated since like 1972.
Yeah.
You know, so it was not ideal. And as a 16-year-old girl,
yeah.
It was not ideal. Anyway, and I was at this party and people were passing around a joint and I had not partaken yet. I just remember being like, I feel like shit. and all of them seemed to be having fun and they seemed to be relaxed and laughing. And I really felt like terrible.
Yeah.
And I just thought, what the hell? And for me, that was it. Like that immediate, I've heard this phrase in the rooms as well. You chase that first
Absolutely.
drunk, that first high, that first whatever.
Yes.
And that was it for me. And then it really was about, okay, and it's the progression, right? I was like, okay, so I'm going to, and I will say that my addiction was probably more drugs than alcohol, because I knew that when I drank, I got drunk, and I knew I got out of control, and I knew that I couldn't do that all the time. I was a teenager. I was 16, 17, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
So I knew I couldn't do that all the time. I had to be careful, but with certain drugs, I could kind of walk that line of being kind of normal or people thinking I was okay.
Right.
So that really, I was off to the races with. Really, it became daily use of smoking pot.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, I started to make those justifications and rationalizations like, well, pot's natural, mushrooms are natural, so I can do some mushrooms. And well, mushroom's a hallucinogen, acid's a hallucinogen, I can do some acid.
Yeah.
Well, if you snort coke, you're totally a drug addict.
Right.
But if you smoke it, I mean, just put a little on top of
sprinkle.
Well, it's probably fine. And then, I was going down to the city to get some alcohol, because that was easy. People would go into the liquor store for you and get it. I was going to the city to get alcohol and get some pot, but this guy with some crack got in my car. And so I can try some crack, I guess. And that's crazy.
Yeah, it is. That's where it takes us.
Yeah.
And you
That's
hear
crazy.
so often like that, like a snap of the fingers.
That's exactly.
Boom, off you go. See ya.
Yeah. And so that's what scares me so much especially now. First of all, I should be dead. But with fentanyl, with the amount of crap that is in these drugs today, I'm terrified.
And the numbers are astounding. When you put the numbers of the percentages of people that are dying, it's baffling. And you hear it too. That, I think his name is Jelly Roll, right? He did that amazing speech, but what is it? It's a full blown 100% capacity 747 crashing almost a weekend. I think 1.5 per week in the United States.
Yes,
can you imagine that?
It's terrifying. It's terrifying. So it's not even you can't even consider doing what I did. You'd be dead.
No,
I mean, what I was smoking, this was also, let me remind people, let me ground people. This is 1992.
Right.
This is 1992. This is shit pot.
Right.
This is not what they have today. The THC content was nothing compared to today. And that's a whole separate podcast, right? About how I feel about everybody using the amount of gummies that they're using every day now, and being oh, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, that's another podcast.
That's another topic. I agree, but I'm with you.
But anyway, I was off to the races very quickly, and basically, just because I want to get to recovery, because I think we all have our story, right?
Absolutely.
And the story is,
we like to focus on the positive.
I agree. And the story is, I made a lot of bad decisions,
right?
And they led me to a lot of bad places, and I had a lot of bad things happen to me during my use, including being raped. And I say that because I think it's important to mention, because people don't talk about sexual assault enough, and how, when I say unbelievably common, I mean, it's 1 in 5 women.
Oh my God.
And
terrifying.
Nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
So that happened, that was something that happened during my addiction, despite trying, saying no and pushing on the person. And so even I had faculties enough to try to fight back, but I couldn't, because I was too drunk. I go to college. And that's where things just go off, becoming completely crazy, because now I don't have to pretend, right? I don't have to use all of my finishing school.
Right. You're out
tricks.
independent Tracy on her own now. Like, right?
I'm on my own.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And things just crash and burn. And I leave school with like a 1.4 GPA. Most of the people I'd hung out with had like gotten arrested, gotten like kicked out, because, you know, you are the company you keep.
Yep. Yep. No doubt.
And I immediately went to school and found those people. And we had, you know, I can't say it was fun, but we partied a lot for that first semester. And my mom finally said, when I got home, like, there's no more hiding it. And she said, you obviously have a problem and you need to go to rehab. And so she literally put me on an airplane and sent me to Hazelden in Minnesota for rehab. And I had no interest in being there. The only reason I was there was to shut my mom up. And I was like, okay, Mom, yeah, you're right. I'll go to rehab. And, you know, and as I'll say for myself, if you're not in it for you, you're not in it. And, you know, and I was not there for me.
That's a fact.
I was not there for me. And I went through a really horrible withdrawal, which also I don't feel like people talk about enough, about how awful it is to come off of this shit.
Yep.
And I remember it. I mean, it's like there's times that people are like, oh, I don't know if I remember that. It's like when my friends talk about not remembering having children, like, oh, I don't remember that with childbirth. I'm like, where? Really? How did you forget? Like, I feel like with withdrawal, I'm like, how did you forget? That was awful.
Oh.
Awful. So I signed myself out of Hazelden because I'm 19 at this point. I'm 19 years old, signed myself out. And Hazelden called my mom and they said, she's a problem. Whoa. She's really bad.
Yeah.
Her attitude is bad. Her addiction is terrible. And they said, if you let her back in the house, she is just going to manipulate you and you're just enabling her. The best thing you can do for her is to kick her out.
Wow.
And my mom did. And she said, you cannot come back in this house. And so that was January of 1996. So for the month of January of 1996, in a very cold Philadelphia, I was homeless. And I slept in unopened cars. Like, I check cars to see if they're unlocked and I get in them and just hope that the owner didn't come back. I slept in sheds, people's sheds, on streets that I knew were like a little safer. Some of my peers would like leave their back door open, like they'd like unlock their back door so I could like sneak in the basement at night when like the parents were sleeping to like sleep in the basement. And it was a really awful month, you know, it was a really awful time of life. And over the course of that time, my grandfather died. Oh. And my mom called me and she said, and I remember her, and this was like when I had like, you know, the corded phone. Like, there was no cell phone. It wasn't like she texted me.
Right.
And it wasn't like she emailed me. There's no
none of that. Yeah.
Nothing. And so she tracked me down at somebody's house and she said to me, you probably won't make it home before he's dead. And I did not. My grandfather had slipped into a coma and he died. And my mom let me stay home for the funeral. She said, you're allowed to stay in the home for the funeral. At which time, on the day of his funeral, my dog died. Like, she was like 15 years old. I'd had her my whole life. And the next day, my mom opened up the front door and she said, funeral's over, get out. And I just remember looking back. It always makes me cry.
Yeah.
I remember looking back for my dog, who always sat by the stairs in this one same spot. And she wasn't there. And I remember just falling to my knees in front of my mom and feeling so broken. Yeah. I mean, just absolutely, I had no answers. And that was like the one moment when my brain had that like one little window open just a little bit. And it said, this isn't working. And I didn't know what I wanted to happen. I didn't know where I wanted that to go. I didn't know if I wanted to get sober. I didn't know if I wanted to die. I just knew for a moment that my way wasn't working. And my mother said, you can stay in the house, but you need to get into another program. And so I agreed. And I went into an intensive outpatient program, which was like 4 times a week. It's like 3 hours a day, 4 times a week. And there I met these 2 counselors. And I promised them, I remember promising them, I said, I will not drink and I will not use for 30 days. And if you can't work some miracle in 30 days, then I'm out of here. As again, I think the key there is I was not taking responsibility for myself.
Right. No, I get it.
Not taking, but for some reason I didn't drink and I didn't use, and I got to go through withdrawal second time. And I don't want to ruin some really good parts of the book because they talk about it in the book, but that's where it was about 21 days in where I got kept after group because I was poison, and the way that I refer to it in the book, I think I say is, like a rotten strawberry, I wanted to make the entire carton rotten, like I just was just poison.
F everybody.
Yeah. And exactly. And they said, they kept me after, and they're basically like, you're getting kicked out. We can't have you here. You're just awful. And at some point I said something, and my one counselor, Al, leaned forward and he grabbed me by the shoulders, and he literally was like right in my face. And he said, listen to me, you bitch. You're going to die. Do you get me? You're going to die. And for me, that was that moment. And I think trying to think if I know anybody in recovery that hasn't had
a moment
like that moment, that whatever it is, maybe it's a quote that you hear, but for me, it was him leaning forward, telling me this, and I believed him. And what happened in that moment was I stopped pointing the finger at you, right?
Yep.
I pointed it back at myself.
There you go.
And I realized that I had a trash can full of stuff, right? My father left when I was 6. He's an alcoholic. My stepfather's abusive, and, sexual assault, whatever, all this other stuff. Yeah. But it was my choice to react to it that way. It was my choice to keep using the alcohol and the drugs. And I took that moment and realized it was my decision to make the next right decision and figure out how I was going to turn this around. Maybe. And that's really where it all began, right? Right when I said, okay, what now? Okay. I actually don't want to do that anymore. I am genuinely concerned for my safety.
Yeah.
Because I know what an addict and alcoholic I am. I know that that's the direction it's going. And I just became willing to say, I don't know. My way's not working. What do I do now?
Right.
And that was, I was grateful. For me, AA worked, right? I know that people have different feelings about AA. I loved it. I found the group. And I think the things I say to people when people talk to me about AA today, I say, you got to treat it kind of like a yoga class. You got to go to maybe 4 different studios and try 3 or 4 different teachers before you find Caitlin. Caitlin's my yoga teacher that I love. And then you're like, oh, now that is my yoga class.
This is what I'm after. Yeah.
And that is what AA is like. You got to go to 4 different, different meetings, whatever. And you got to try them a few times. And eventually you'll find your people and your vibe. And I have a meeting. It's at 7:45 a.m. And that's my vibe. Those are my people.
I love you said that. And, same thing for early on, right? And especially when I'm in it, right? I can pick something apart and be like, see, I told you this isn't for me, or this room's not for me. And it was told early on, you just take what you can get, take the good stuff and leave everything else there.
Yep.
And the same exact thing for me too is and keep trying different meetings. And when you find one that you like, keep going back to that meeting.
Yeah.
And early on, I said this last night, and early on, I was such a wreck. I barely was hanging on to my job in the city. And for that first year, alls I did was go to work because I was barely hanging on to this job, go to work, and they give us the pamphlets, and I would just look, where am I going to the meeting after work? And I would go to maybe 1 or 2 meetings every single day. And the weekends, maybe I had 2, maybe I had 3. And for everything that New York City is and has, especially has to offer in the early 2000s, like the sobriety in New York City is absolutely incredible. And that's
I
what's
bet.
yeah, and it's, I had the moment too, and I'm often not sure exactly what it was because I went to rehab in 2002. My sobriety date's 2006, so I was in and out for 4 years, and it was absolutely brutal, and it was just awful, and it was
You
awful.
just had to check.
I had to keep the experiment going. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
keep proving everyone else wrong. Now I'm going to figure this out myself, and I had the moment though. I was sitting in my apartment in West 12th Street, awesome little studio apartment on the first floor. And I don't know what was different, but something came over me. I was drunk. I say it was a Tuesday. I think it wasn't even a Tuesday, but it was just such a nothing night. Like I've had
Mhm.
way worse bottoms or way more trouble. But I was just sitting there all alone, shrunk as a skunk. And I just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I
Yeah.
can't. And I mentioned my mom, and she's one of 10, and I'm the first grandchild on my mom's side. And so there's like 20 something younger cousins I have. And I remember sitting there thinking, and they looked up to me like, oh,
Mhm.
he's sports, he works in New York City, Wall Street, whatever, all this BS stuff. But
Yeah.
I love these guys and girls, right? And I'm like, is this what I want? Is this what I want them to think is okay? Like this is how to live a life.
Mhm.
I was such a mess. I said it last night too. Like alcoholism and addiction, it's a disease of the mind, but it eats away at our souls
Mhm.
each every day, and the moral compass gets lower and lower and lower. And I often like, what happened? It was just, I think for me, a higher power, God entered my life and just gave me that gift of surrender. And it's funny, like I said, I was in and out for so long. I knew, although I was hesitant to share it with people close to me, I knew something was different. Like something
Mhm.
changed. Like first time I took all my booze in my apartment and I dumped it out. I had never done that before. And I was never going back to AA, Tracy. Like I knew one day I'd probably have to stop drinking, but I'm definitely not going back there. And I'm calling intergroup, calling information, AA intergroup. I'm in trouble. I'm looking for a meeting. Where are you? I'm on West 12th Street. All right, well, look right down the street. There's one. And I went. I went the next day. And that started my journey. And everything changed. I used to like check the box of going to a meeting. I'd show up and sit in the back, leave a few minutes early. Like, all right, I went. This stuff's not working. But
Mhm.
sitting in the front, I'm raising my hand when a total stranger comes up to you and says, hey, man, here's my number. You need to call me. And every instinct in my being is like, dude, take your number and yourself
Yeah.
and beat it. I'm like, you know what? This time I'm going to do what I'm told. Okay. And I wanted what they had, and then there's some amazing groups in the city. Like there was playing softball in Central Park, these amazing groups. I'm like, wow, this is we're actually having fun,
Yeah.
and I didn't know also, this is me. Everyone knew I knew I had a problem drinking, but I didn't know all the shit that I was carrying at all. Like I knew I saw stuff when I was a kid and it gave me a chip on my shoulder. If you saw that, then you would be even worse than me. But I didn't know until I started writing the stuff down and doing
Mhm.
step work, like, whoa. And I thought I was not afraid of anything, Tracy. Like, I'm bring it on. It was all a facade. I didn't know it though. It was all me
I
knowing
get it.
everything.
Mhm.
Didn't realize. And now, like I said, I'm turning 50 in a couple of months. Like I could still like, I'm aware of it. I could put fear on almost on anything. It's all my fears to these days are, they're projections in the future that haven't even happened yet. And my sponsor
I know.
I wait
But
for
isn't
so
it
much time.
great that you can like pause and just recognize that?
That's what I mean. Like we
That's
have these
that's the
tools.
gift, right?
That is.
Literally, you just said it.
It is. We
I
have
can
these
see
tools.
it, I can name it, and I can pause and go, okay, wait a minute. I don't need to spiral. I don't need to spiral.
Stay right here. Right here.
Yep.
What right now, everything's good. So just
And that is such a gift. And your moment, I mean, and I be, again now, so my
yeah, yeah.
job
Mhm.
outside of writing a book is I do market research. I do qualitative market research, which is basically a way of like I ask questions.
Right.
And so now, of course, I want to do like some market research with people in recovery because I really feel like there's something to this moment where I think the moment is really going, it's you to, oh, it's me.
Yes.
Like, and like, I get to take responsibility for this. And like, I get to choose to do something about it. And I wonder, because that was my moment. My moment was like, oh, it's me. It's like Taylor Swift, right? It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
It's right. My daughter.
That's me. And I get to do that, like you just said, all the time. I get to pause. And I did that. I did that the other day. I was spiraling and I stopped and I said, belief over fear.
Yeah.
I get to choose belief over fear. Now, does that completely get rid of all of my fear in the moment? No, but it puts a pause on it for me. I get to say, I see you and I'm going to choose for just a hot second. And I might go back 2 minutes later.
Sure, right.
But for a hot second, I'm actually going to I'm not going to go down that path.
Yeah. I love what you just said. And it's one of my like mantras of life, and similar to what you said, but is you can't live in faith and fear at the same time. It's one or the other. Right. And so, like you said, I'll be going to a business meeting and I'll have all this imposter syndrome. I'll be doing a podcast. I'm like, who do you think you are? Right. And then it's just like, just calm down, take a breather. Right. Just can't live in faith and fear and at the same time. Like we said, say a quick prayer. Let me help one person today. Right. And at the end of it's almost like the subtle art of not giving a fuck in a way. It's just like,
absolutely.
All right, just go be you. And then that's it. And you walk into the meeting or you walk into the podcast is different because I get to meet amazing people like yourself. And, there's a joy to having this conversation. I think I love doing this. I do because there's so many people, and this is how it started, like being in a meeting, like talking to me, like there's more people that would benefit to hear this. And my girlfriend, who is my wife now, I love to say that. Sorry, I say it like every single episode. She had got me a book called Courage to Change 18 years ago.
Is that
like
that wasn't
Pete
wasn't Brene Brown? Who wrote Courage to Change?
It's a bunch of different people. It's like
okay.
Pete Townsend in there talking about sobriety, and there's some business leaders in there, and I'm reading it. I'm like, and it helped me. Like it really did. Wow, these people they're sober and look at the lives they're living. Wow, I thought that was impossible. I didn't know. You don't know what you know. And so there's an element of that with the podcast or I saw Josh Brolin saying, sitting on the soapbox, recover out loud. This term recover out loud is new to me, Tracy. Like I didn't know about it, but I think it's so important. And this community of ours, people that write a memoir like yourself and are coming on a show to talk about their story is helping other people. And, I think it's incredible. I think I got off topic of where this started.
No. But it's all true, and it is, one person at a time, one day at a time, one decision at a time. And that's really, that's kind of there's two things that you said that I want to circle back to, but one of the things that I credit really all of my successes in life, not just my recovery, but my relationship, my marriage, and being able to choose a healthy partner, which is a miracle after what I saw.
Sure.
Sorry, it's true. But having made that decision to do the work in that area and being able to be open and see him and see what we could be.
Yeah.
And my success in my career, my degrees, my company. I started my own company in 2006, which is still successful. So all of that came down to that stupid sign on the wall that I remember looking at in my first meeting going, these are stupid. Make the next right decision.
Do the next right thing. I love
it. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's the fucking secret, everyone.
It is though. It is.
That is literally it. That's it. Do you want a new career? Make the next right decision. Start studying whatever you want to do. Do you want to lose weight? Make the next right decision. Maybe skip dessert tonight. Do you want to get sober? Make the next right decision.
100%.
Don't drink today and go to a meeting or whatever. Whatever. Go to an online meeting. Call somebody.
Right.
It's like, and I want to clarify the difference between it's just that simple but that doesn't mean it's easy.
100%. And that's the fact.
Yeah.
It's
It's
simple.
simple,
Doesn't make
not
it
easy.
easy, but it's really, really simple. It
Mm-hmm.
is. And I've been doing this has really been coming to fruition, this whole concept of, it doesn't have to be this like, oh, slowly get there. Like, you want to change your life? You can change your life right now. Okay.
Yep.
Might be hard. It's going to be difficult. So
In fact, it not might be hard. It will be hard.
it will be
And if
really
it's not hard, you're not working hard enough. I'm
100
sorry. Like, I'm just like a
1000%.
rip the Band-Aid off kind of person.
No, that's where
It's
I'm
going
getting.
to hurt.
Yes, it is.
Warning.
Yeah. No, but on the other side of this thing is a life
A
literally
miracle. It's a
beyond your
miracle.
wildest dreams. Beyond your wildest dreams.
It's a miracle. And everyone, like, just talking to you, listening to the people you talk to, I don't care if you are, 1 week, 1 year, 18 years, 28 years. I am emotional at every anniversary.
Yes.
And it's been 28, and it is emotional because it's a freaking miracle.
I'm so glad you said that, because I was at a meeting online this morning at 7:30, and guy's telling a story, right? And I'm just sitting there. I'm like, oh my God, hear it again. Like, and I said, like, I raised my hand or whatever on Zoom. I'm like, I'm so grateful that I love to hear these transformation stories every single time I come to a meeting, because this is what it's all about. It's unbelievable. Like, look at where you were. Look at where you were, Tracy. Look where I was. But look at where you are today. And this may be because I'm turning 50. Maybe it's my, midlife, I like midlife crisis. I'm crossing a crisis in my midlife. It's my midlife epiphany. Like, I am pounding the table that the next 20, 30, 40 years are going to be the best years of my life. And like I said, I'm going on 50. Sorry to keep saying it, but I have more goals and aspirations and excitable things that I want to do with my life now than ever before. And I owe that all because I was just said at the beginning, grateful alcoholic, all this stuff that I learned. I get to
Yeah.
work with myself, got a group of people. And I love you said, rip the Band-Aid off. Do you want to change your life? You can change your life. You can change your life. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Buckle up, hold on. It's going to be a hell of a ride. And you're going to
And the other quote I love, it's a Tanzanian proverb. It's similar, but little by little becomes a lot.
Yes.
Just little changes, not these extreme. I always use diet as an example because it's just such an easy example. People are like, I want to lose 10 pounds, so I'm going to stop eating. I'm like, oh, well, that's not going to work.
Right.
But just again, I don't know, skip dessert tonight.
Yeah.
And if you do that often enough, believe it or not, like, eventually you're going to be like, oh, I actually feel better. I look better. I'm reaching goals, whatever, and I think the same for whether you're sober curious, whether you're trying to get sober, whether you, again, want to change your career. I think it's like your girlfriend, now wife, let me use your words.
Thank you.
Your girlfriend, now wife, when she read the 12 steps, she was like, I feel like everyone could benefit from this. Yeah, I agree. And just start to see what you want. And so and I actually just talked about this recently on another interview. First, you got to want it for yourself. You got to want it.
100%.
And like, you got to know that you want it. And like, don't bullshit. I'm sorry. It drives me crazy when people are like, oh, I will do it. No, are you going to really do it? Or are you just saying you will do it? Because if you're not going to do it, then own that you're not going to do it and move on. Like,
Right.
And that's okay too. It's okay to say, like, I actually don't really want that. Like, just own it. But if you do want it, make the decision, have a plan, and little by little becomes a lot, and go and like start making those changes.
So true.
It's just that simple and not easy.
No, and it's so true. And I know on your website you had a James Clear quote, but he's got another quote, like, it's not the big giant thing you need to change. It's every day. It's small little steps, small little improvements, and improvements every single day. If you do that for 365 days, you have no idea how amazing your life would be. And it's
what's the quote? I don't think it's by James Clear. I forget who it's by, but it's like, people overestimate what they can do in a day, but underestimate what they can do in a year.
Yeah. Or I even expanded that. People, overestimate what they can do in a couple of years and completely underestimate what they can do in a decade. Like, I think it was well, but obviously that's been going around that quote. But when I heard that, Tracy, I was like, oh my God, yeah. Like I wrote with that one down. That's a savor, that quote. I love that one. It's amazing.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, and I think that's, to kind of circle back to kind of recovery and how this all connects. Yes, I mean, I was fortunate enough that I didn't keep checking to see if I was an addict. Like you talked about having 4 years where you were like, I just want to be sure.
Yeah.
I am extremely grateful that once and maybe it was luck. Maybe I just was like lucky to have the right counselors that said the right thing at that right moment. I don't know, but I didn't keep looking. I knew.
Yeah.
Once that window opened, right? And I was like, oh, wait, I don't think this is working. I embraced that. And I mean, and I was 19 years old. So I just want to like go on record saying like, I went through, do you know what it was like going to college in the 90s sober? Like I was like my friend Maggie calls me a unicorn. She's like, you were like a unicorn. People were like, what?
Yeah.
And it was hard. It was really hard. And then working and dating, that was weird. Being like, oh, I don't drink. But I could go on about that. Right. And let me be clear, just because I got sober at 19 didn't mean I made great choices. I made a lot of bad choices.
Of course.
Sobriety is not another word for perfection. I am far from it. I made a lot of mistakes.
Yes.
I apologize for them if any of my ex-boyfriends are listening. But it gives me, first of all, what sobriety does do is it gives me clarity and responsibility. It gives me clarity to see mistakes I've made and apologize for them and see my part in it because I'm always aware, right? I'm never foggy. I'm never numbing.
Right.
There's no numbing.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true. I do sometimes really just stuff my face with potato chips. That's like that's my drug of choice, are potato chips.
I think ice cream's probably mine, but yeah.
Sometimes you got to be like, listen, mommy's pouring herself a bowl of potato chips. That means everybody stay away. I'm going to have to eat my feelings for a minute. But like, I know I'm doing it. And like, that's like the gratitude of being like, I am going to stuff my feelings right now for the next 10 minutes. And then I'm going to have to address them.
Right.
But for right now,
in 10 minutes too. And I don't know why we keep doing it, but hey, it's better than where
I'm going to eat these. Exactly. It's potato chips. It's not alcohol. They're not going to ruin my life. It's okay.
Exactly.
And just showing up, and
we learned the artist showing
gratitude of being able to wake up and like get to do it again and write this book. To your point of like being 50 and being like, so I'm 48, just turned 48. I'm now an author. I now have this book. And we'll see where it goes. I was really led to something, whatever that thing is, told me to do this. And it was about 13 months ago. And this thing said, you need to share this. The world needs a win right now. They need to hear a win with fentanyl deaths, opioid epidemic. I don't know if you've seen this, but the amount of alcohol increase use during and since COVID is out of control.
No, I know. I did see that.
And it's crazy. And it hasn't slowed down. It was like everyone started drinking during COVID and they haven't stopped.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It's a problem. It's I do not know what the next 5 years is going to look like.
Yeah. But you're doing your part though. You know what I mean? That's the thing. You're doing your part today, right? And these are, I said, again, speaking for myself, I didn't speak that way 18 years ago. Like, it wasn't like part of me to like, hey, hey, God, let me help one person today. Part of my prayers, like, kind of like, I'm really leaning into that. Like, it's so great to be able to maybe help someone with this, right? And friend was spot on when you were 19, 20 years old and calling you a unicorn, because that must have been so difficult to be that age. I say this all the time. It's not the first time I'm saying it, but when I'm in a meeting and a young person comes in their young 20s, I admire them so much because they're so ahead of the game. And I think it takes that much more courage to actually come into a meeting like that. I sincerely mean that. I went into a meeting my first time, or rehab. I was 26, thought my life was over. Last time I had a drink or a drug, I was 31. And that's young too. I mean,
it is.
Well, let me tell you, those 10 years, like, whoa, like, as you can probably imagine. But your friend called you a unicorn back in the day, and here you are, author, penning this beautiful book, which we're all going to find. Where do we find your book?
Oh, you're so sweet. So it's on Amazon. So, and I have one right next to me. So I'll hold it up in case this is going to be, so it's called Pretty Wrecked.
Yes.
Confessions of a Teen Addict and Her Road to Recovery. And, One of the things, so I love music. Like you like hiking. In particular, I love 80s music because
we're big 80s fans here.
It's just happy music. It's just happy music.
Yeah, there's no worries in the 80s.
No, exactly. Ignorantly so, but no.
Yes, exactly.
Maybe not the healthiest decade, but great music.
Yeah,
great music and great clothes. So throughout the book, I use a lot of nostalgia from the 80s and 90s. Just to try, because I think it's fun. It's fun to like remember those like moments. Whether you're in recovery or not in recovery, it's really fun. I also wrote the book as a series of vignettes. So I love the quote, "People remember stories."
Yes.
And so that's what I did. So instead of, it's not like a novel. It's like little stories. It's like little snippets of stories. So it reads like very, very quickly. In fact, I've had a few people message me and say, I'm not a reader and I read your book in 3 days. Like I just kind of like couldn't put it down. And the other thing that's a little different about this is that I spend the final third of the book really focused on recovery. And that's what's a little bit different than some other sobriety memoirs, which are mostly the train wreck, mostly the addiction. I really felt like I wanted to make the recovery section really stand out and also applicable to anybody wanting to make a change. Again, whether your thing is alcohol or drugs or wanting a new career change or wanting to new relationships or whatever it might be. I wanted to, because the basics of change remain the same regardless of the issue.
Totally agree.
And so I really tried to make it as applicable and relatable as possible for people. So it's on Amazon. Again, it's called Pretty Wrecked. You can also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, at Tracy Viola Author.
Okay.
It's the same. So at Tracy Viola Author. And that's my website as well, tracyviolaauthor.com.
Perfect.
Yeah. And I would love it. I mean, I'm like Office Space. I'm a people person, damn it.
No,
clearly.
We're going to put all these, just so you know, all the links will be on the podcast.
Thank you. But like, I love the interaction. Like, I love like message me, talk to me. I love I know I might be an author, I might write, but like, that's like,
no, that's where I
love people
are, right? When people reach out to you like, hey, some perfect stranger, I just read this part in your book. Thank you so much for saying that. Right. Like that's the stuff. It's like, oh, that's cool stuff. People DMing me, hey, I heard you on this. And let me tell you, you helped me, that was amazing. I've been in the same place and thank you for saying that and appreciate what you do. It's like, whoa, but it makes you feel really good.
It hits you. It really does. It really does. And it's that one person, it's the one. Yeah. And then the one gets the one. And I talk about that story in the book about my friend Brian, and I didn't know this, but I was his one. I was his one that talked to him after a meeting and that made him stay. He was quitting. And I didn't know that. And so, it's the one. And then Brian, I'm sure, has helped other people, and so you just don't know. You don't know. Just be kind and be patient and, remember that somebody's, don't judge your insides against somebody else's outsides.
Say it, that's a great one. I say it all the time. You never know what's going on with that person, right? So yeah, don't judge. I love, don't judge your insides versus other people's outsides. So we are going to put all your links all across everywhere. Go find the book. Your book is on the way. I can't wait to read it myself. I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have a follow-up. Okay. Because this has been really fun. I really enjoyed it.
I love that. Yes. I have a bunch of questions, dog ear, a bunch of pages. You can even ask me some more inside information that I maybe didn't share in the book,
There you go. Oh yes. We'll definitely do that for sure. Well, Tracy, lovely to meet you today. I'm so glad you came on. I'm big on staying in touch. All right. So
definitely
me if you need anything at all, and we'll be in touch before this comes out. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all that you do. And thanks for sharing your story and inspiring others.
My pleasure. Thank you for all that you're doing and letting me hopefully say one little piece of information that maybe made somebody feel seen today.
Well, you absolutely did. We both know that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you for tuning in to another powerful episode of the Begin Again podcast. We sincerely appreciate your time and support. We hope that today's conversation has ignited a spark within you, affirming that recovery is not only attainable, but can also be a wellspring of strength and resilience. Our ultimate goal is to make a difference in someone's life every single day. By sharing these stories of redemption, we strive to empower you and inspire you to unlock your fullest potential, facilitate positive transformations, and contribute to creating a better future for yourself, for your loved ones, and the world at large. If you know someone who could benefit from listening to our show, please share it with them. And if you resonate with our mission and feel compelled to do so, we would greatly appreciate your support through a 5-star review, following us on Instagram, and subscribing to our YouTube channel, The Begin Again Podcast. The more positive reviews we receive and the wider our message spreads, the greater our collective ability to help others realize that change is possible in their own lives. Thank you once again for being part of our community. May you be blessed on your own journey of personal growth and transformation.